The guards laughed when they threw the human into the cell. They laughed even harder when they chained him next to the dragon. A weak human and a dying beast. What could they possibly do? But 3 nights later, the entire prison went silent. No alarms, no screams. Just one message burned into the walls. You should have killed us. The transport ship moved in silence through deep space, like a shadow no one could see. Inside it, chained and guarded, sat a human named Kale. His hands were locked in heavy metal cuffs. His face was calm, but his eyes were watching everything. He had been captured 3 days ago during a failed mission. The alien empire had not killed him. That was the strange part. They had something worse planned. The ship slowed down. Outside the small window, a dark shape appeared. It was not a planet. It was not a station. It was something else. A massive black structure floating in empty space. No lights, no signals, just darkness. One of the guards spoke, his voice full of cold amusement. Welcome to the Black Void. Kale said nothing, but he understood. This was a prison. Not just any prison. The worst one. The ship docked with a heavy metal sound. The doors opened, and cold air rushed in. Guards pulled Kale to his feet and dragged him forward. Inside, the prison felt dead. Long metal halls stretched in every direction. No windows. No sound except distant echoes. The walls were thick, dark, and full of old burn marks. This place had seen things. Bad things. As they walked, Kale noticed the cells. Some were empty. Some were not. In one cell, a creature with too many arms pressed against the glass, its eyes glowing in the dark. In another, something moved so fast it was hard to see. None of them looked human. One guard laughed. We keep the worst things in the galaxy here. Another added, and now we add a human. They all laughed. Kale did not react. They stopped in front of a large metal door. It looked different from the others. Stronger, heavier. One guard pressed a button. The door slowly opened. A deep, low sound came from inside. A growl, the kind that made the air feel heavy. Even the guards took a small step back. Perfect, one of them said with a cruel smile. Let's see how long the human lasts. They shoved Kale inside. The door slammed shut behind him. Darkness. For a few seconds, Kale could see nothing. The air was thick and warm. There was a smell of ash and something else, something old. Then, slowly, his eyes adjusted, and he saw it, the dragon. It was massive, even lying on the ground. It filled most of the cell. Its body was covered in dark scales, some broken, some burned. Heavy chains were wrapped around its legs, wings, and neck. Glowing devices were attached to the chains, draining its power. It was weak, but not weak enough. Its eyes opened, bright, burning, full of anger. The dragon lifted its head slightly and growled again. A small flame escaped its mouth, weak but still dangerous. Outside the cell, the guards watched through a screen. This will be fun, one said. 5 minutes, another replied. That's all he gets. Inside, Kale stood still. He looked at the dragon. The dragon looked at him. 2 prisoners. 2 enemies, or maybe not. The dragon moved slightly, chains clanking loudly. It tried to stand, but the devices on its body flashed, sending pain through it. It roared in anger. The sound shook the walls. Kale did not move. He knew one wrong step, one sudden move, and it would attack. The dragon's eyes locked onto him. It saw a human. Small, weak, easy to kill. It opened its mouth again, a weak flame building inside. Outside, the guards leaned closer, waiting. Do it, one whispered. But then, Kale did something no one expected. He slowly sat down. No sudden moves. No fear. Just calm. The dragon paused. The flame faded. Its eyes narrowed. This was not normal. Kale lowered his head slightly. Not in fear, but in respect. Then he spoke. His voice was soft. Calm. Steady. I'm not your enemy. The dragon did not understand the words, but it understood something else. The tone. There was no threat in it. No fear. No anger. Just peace. The dragon blinked. It had seen many beings before. All of them screamed. All of them ran. All of them fought. This one did none of that. Kale stayed where he was, sitting on the cold floor, hands still chained. "I know they hurt you," he said quietly. "They hurt me too." The dragon's breathing slowed, just a little. Its eyes stayed on him, watching, thinking. Kale did not look away. Seconds passed, then minutes. Nothing happened. No attack, no fire. Outside the cell, the guards stopped laughing. "What is he doing?" one asked. "I don't know." Inside, the dragon slowly lowered its head. Not fully, not in trust, but not in attack either. The tension in the air changed. Something invisible shifted. Kale took a slow breath. He had made the first step, a very dangerous step. The dragon let out a low sound. Not a growl this time. Something softer. Something unsure. For the first time since Kale entered the cell, it did not try to kill him. Outside, the guards stared at the screen in silence. One of them spoke, his voice now serious. "This isn't right." Another nodded slowly. "Something is wrong." Inside the dark cell, the human and the dragon remained still, watching each other, learning, and far away, deep in the prison systems, something had just begun, something the Empire was not ready for. The first day passed in silence. Kale stayed in his corner. The dragon stayed in its chains. Neither attacked, neither trusted, but something had changed. The guards noticed it first. "He should be dead by now," one of them said, watching the screen. But Kale was still alive. On the second day, food was dropped into the cell. A small metal tray slid through the floor slot. It was barely enough for one person. Kale picked it up slowly. The dragon's eyes followed every move. It was hungry, very hungry. Kale looked at the food, then at the dragon. For a moment, he said nothing. Then, without a word, he pushed half the food across the floor, closer to the dragon. The guards laughed again. "Now he's feeding it," one said. "That's just making it stronger." Inside the cell, the dragon stared at the food, then at Kale. It did not move at first. It did not trust this. Nothing in its life had ever been given without pain. Kale sat back and waited. Minutes passed. Finally, slowly, the dragon moved its head forward. The chains rattled as it stretched just enough to reach the food. It sniffed it, then ate, quickly, but it never took its eyes off Kale. Kale gave a small nod. No words, just understanding. That was the second step. Days passed. The pattern continued. Every time food came, Kale shared it. Every time, the dragon watched him closely, trying to understand. And slowly, something inside the dragon began to change. Its anger did not disappear, but it became quieter, more controlled. On the fifth day, Kale noticed wounds, deep cuts under the dragon's scales, burn marks from the glowing chains, dark patches where the devices drained its energy. The dragon was not just trapped, it was being slowly destroyed. Kale moved closer that day, carefully, slow steps. The dragon tensed. A low growl formed in its chest. Kale stopped. He raised his empty hands. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said softly. Again, the dragon did not understand the words, but it understood the feeling. Kale waited. Then, very slowly, he reached out, not to grab, not to control, just to touch. The dragon's eyes locked onto his hand. One sudden move, and it could end him. But Kale did not stop. His fingers gently touched a broken scale. The dragon flinched. A low growl escaped, but it did not strike. Kale quickly pulled his hand back. "Okay," he whispered. "Not yet." He backed away. Respect. That was what he was showing. And the dragon noticed. The next day, he tried again. This time, the dragon did not growl. It watched, carefully. Kale tore a piece of cloth from his sleeve. Slowly, gently, he pressed it against one of the wounds. The dragon's body tightened. Pain, but Kale was careful. Slow, gentle. After a few seconds, the dragon relaxed. Just a little. Kale cleaned the wound as best as he could. Day by day, he did the same. Small steps. No rush. No force. Outside the cell, other prisoners were watching. Some pressed against their glass walls, staring. Others whispered in strange alien languages. They could not believe what they were seeing. A human touching a dragon, helping it, and still alive. Impossible, one prisoner hissed. Humans are weak, another said. But inside that cell, that idea was breaking. The dragon grew stronger. Its breathing became deeper, its eyes brighter. The weak flames became stronger, glowing hotter in its throat. And yet, it never attacked Kale. One night, everything changed. The prison lights dimmed as usual. The cold silence filled the halls. Kale sat near the dragon, closer than ever before. No chains between them now. Only trust. The dragon watched him quietly. Then, slowly, it moved. Its massive head lowered, closer to Kale, closer than it had ever allowed. Kale froze for a moment. This was dangerous, very dangerous. But he did not move away. The dragon lowered its head even more, until it rested just a few inches from him. Not a threat, not an attack. Something else. Acceptance. Kale slowly raised his hand. And this time, the dragon did not stop him. He placed his hand on its head. Warm scales. Strong. Alive. The dragon let out a low, deep sound. Not anger. Not pain. Something calm. Something peaceful. Kale smiled slightly. You trust me now, he whispered. But Kale was not just surviving. He was thinking, watching, learning. Every day, he studied the prison, the guard steps, the timing of food, the sounds of doors opening and closing, the lights, the power shifts. He noticed something strange. Every cycle, for just a moment, the lights flickered, the hum of the machines dropped. The chains on the dragon dimmed slightly, just for a second. Kale's mind began to work faster. He looked at the chains again. These were not normal chains. They were draining energy, keeping the dragon weak. But if the power dropped, even for a second, that night, Kale leaned close to the dragon. Very close. Close enough to whisper. I can get you out, he said softly. The dragon's eyes opened, bright, focused. Kale pointed slightly toward the chains, then toward the ceiling, then made a quick, breaking motion with his hands. The dragon watched carefully, understanding, not the words, but the idea. Escape. Its eyes began to glow. A deep fire building inside. Not wild, not out of control. Focused. For the first time, there was hope in those eyes. Kale nodded slowly. Soon, he whispered. Outside the cell, the guards watched again. But this time, they were not laughing. Something had changed. They could feel it. Inside that dark cell, something dangerous was growing. The dragon looked at Kale, and for the first time, it made a sound that was not anger, not pain, but something almost impossible. It lifted its head slightly, and its mouth opened just a little, not to attack, but to show something else, a smile. And in that moment, the Empire had already made its biggest mistake. Time moved slowly inside the black void. There were no days, no nights, only cycles. But Kale counted everything. Every step of every guard, every sound of every door, every flicker of every light. He waited, patient, silent, watching, because one mistake would mean death. At first, it was just a small detail, a flicker, so fast most would miss it. The lights would dim for a second. The deep hum of the prison would weaken. Then everything would return to normal. Again and again. Same time, same pattern. Kale noticed it on the third cycle. By the fifth, he was sure. There's a drop in power, he whispered to himself. It was small, very small, but it was enough. He looked at the dragon. The massive creature lay on the ground, barely moving. To the guards, it still looked broken, weak. But Kale knew the truth. The dragon was waiting, just like him. Kale tested his chains. Slowly, carefully, he pulled against them, just a little, feeling the strength of the metal. Too strong to break. Not yet, but nothing is perfect. He began to search the cell. Small movements. Nothing sudden. He found tiny pieces of metal near the walls. Old fragments. Broken parts from long ago. Someone had tried to escape before. They had failed. Kale picked up one sharp piece. He hid it in his hand. That night, When the prison fell silent, Kale began his work. He pressed the sharp metal against the chain. Slow, quiet, scraping. Again and again. The sound was almost nothing. A soft scratch lost in the deep silence. He stopped every few seconds. Listening, waiting. No guards. No alarms. Good. Across the cell, the dragon watched him. Its eyes glowed faintly in the dark. It understood. The plan had begun. Days passed. Kale kept working. Each cycle, the chain became weaker. Not enough to see, but enough to feel. A small crack, a small weakness. That was all he needed. The dragon played its part too. It stayed still. It breathed slowly. It acted weak. When guards came to check, it barely moved. Sometimes it even closed its eyes. The guards laughed. Still dying, one said. Not worth anything anymore, another added. They stopped watching closely. They stopped caring. That was their mistake. Inside the cell, the dragon was changing. Its strength was returning. Slowly, quietly, like fire building under ashes. Kale studied the timing again. The flicker came every cycle. Short, just 1 second. Maybe less. That was their only chance. 1 second to break free. 1 second to act. 1 second to change everything. Kale sat beside the dragon that night, closer than ever. He placed his hand on its head. Tonight, he whispered. The dragon's eyes opened, bright, focused, ready. The cycle began. Far away, machines hummed. Energy flowed through the prison. Guards walked their usual paths. Everything felt normal. But inside that cell, everything was about to change. Kale stood up slowly. He moved his hands, feeling the weak point in the chain. This was it. No second chance. No mistake allowed. The dragon lifted its head slightly. Its breathing grew deeper. Fire began to build inside its chest. Not visible. Not yet, but ready. The lights flickered once. A warning. Kale's heart beat faster. Now, he whispered. The power dropped. Just for a moment. The lights dimmed. The hum of the machines weakened. The glowing chains around the dragon lost their strength. And Kale moved. With all his force, he pulled his arms apart. The weakened chain snapped. A sharp, quiet crack. He was free. No hesitation. No pause. Kale rushed forward. The control device on the dragon's neck glowed weakly. He grabbed a broken metal piece and slammed it into the device. Once, twice, 3 times. The device shattered. For a split second, everything was still. Then, the dragon roared. It was not the weak growl from before, not the broken sound of pain. This was power, pure, unstoppable. The roar shook the walls. The floor trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Across the prison, prisoners looked up in shock. What was that? One whispered. The chains around the dragon began to break. One by one, metal snapped. Energy sparks exploded. The dragon stood up, fully, for the first time. Massive wings spread wide, hitting the walls. Fire burst from its mouth, bright, strong, alive. Kale stepped back, shielding his face from the heat. But he was smiling. It's time, he said. Outside the cell, the guards froze. Alarms had not started yet, but they heard it. That roar. That's not possible, one guard whispered. Inside, the dragon turned toward Kale. Its eyes burned like fire, but there was no anger in them. Only trust. Only purpose. Then the alarms exploded. Loud. Sharp. Red lights flashed across the prison. Security breach, a voice echoed. Security breach. Doors began to lock. Guards started running. Weapons powered on. But inside that cell, it was already too late. The dragon took 1 step forward. The ground cracked under its weight. Kale stood beside it. No longer a prisoner. No longer weak. The plan had worked. The chains were broken. The beast was free. And as the alarm screamed through the black void, one truth became clear. The Empire had just lost control. The alarm screamed through the black void. Red lights flashed across every corridor. Metal doors slammed shut. Guards shouted orders over each other. But it was already too late. Chaos had begun. Inside the broken cell, The dragon stepped forward. 1 step. The wall cracked. 2 steps. The metal bent. Then, with a powerful swing of its body, the dragon smashed through the cell wall. The impact shook the entire prison. Dust and sparks filled the air. A new path opened. Kale ran beside it. Fast. Focused. No fear. Left, he shouted, pointing down a dark corridor. The dragon turned instantly. It trusted him. Guards rushed in from both sides. Weapons raised. Stop them, one shouted. Energy blasts fired. Bright blue bolts filled the air. Kale moved quickly, dodging each shot. The dragon did not dodge. It faced them. Its chest burned with fire. And then it released it. A massive wave of flames exploded forward. The corridor turned into an inferno. Guards screamed as the fire consumed everything in its path. Walls melted. Weapons dropped. Silence followed. Kale didn't stop moving. "Keep going," he called. The dragon followed. Across the prison, prisoners heard the explosions. They saw the fire. They felt the ground shake. Doors weakened. Locks failed. Cells began to open. Creatures stepped out. Strange. Dangerous. Powerful. They looked around in confusion. Then they saw it. A human running beside a dragon, breaking everything. "The human is leading it," one creature whispered. "That's impossible," another said. But the truth spread fast, through whispers, through fear, through the shaking walls of the prison. A human and a dragon are breaking the prison. More prisoners joined the chaos. Some attacked guards. Some ran. Some simply watched in shock. Kale moved through it all with purpose. He was not here for chaos. He was here to escape. "Straight," he told the dragon. Then right. The dragon followed every command. No hesitation. No doubt. Behind them, more guards arrived. Stronger ones. Better weapons. They wore heavy armor. Their eyes were cold. Elite soldiers. "Target locked," one said. They raised large weapons. Not normal blasters. These were built to stop monsters. They fired. A powerful blast at the dragon. It staggered back slightly. Pain flashed in its eyes. Kale saw it. "Move," he shouted. The dragon jumped aside just as another blast hit the wall, blowing it apart. Kale looked around quickly. Thinking. Planning. Always planning. "Up," he shouted, pointing to a narrow path above. The dragon understood. With one powerful leap, it climbed onto a broken platform. Kale climbed with it. From above, they had an advantage. The soldiers below tried to aim. Too slow. "Now!" Kale yelled. The dragon roared and released another blast of fire. From above, it spread wider, faster. The elite soldiers had no cover. They fell, one by one. Kale took a deep breath. "They're learning," he said quietly. "They're sending stronger forces." The dragon growled softly. It was ready. They moved again. Faster now. No stopping. No slowing down. Finally, they reached it. The main gate. It stood at the end of a massive hall. Tall, wide, unbreakable, thick metal, covered in energy shields. This was the final barrier. The last line of defense. Kale stopped. For the first time since the escape began. Behind them, the sounds of battle grew louder. More guards, more weapons, more danger. In front of them, freedom, but locked behind that gate. Kale stared at it, thinking, calculating. There was no control panel, no easy way out. This gate was built to never open from the inside. The dragon stepped beside him. It looked at the gate, then at Kale. For a moment, everything slowed. The noise faded. The chaos disappeared. Two beings stood there, a human and a dragon. Kale met its eyes. He didn't need to speak. The dragon understood. "This is it," Kale said softly. "Everything we have." The dragon stepped forward. Its wings spread wide. Its body glowed with rising heat. Fire built inside it, stronger than ever before. Kale stepped back. "Full power," he said. The dragon roared, a deep, powerful sound that shook the entire hall. Behind them, the guards finally arrived, weapons ready. "Stop them," they screamed. Too late. The dragon unleashed everything. A massive beam of fire shot forward. brighter than anything before, hotter than the core of a star. It hit the gate. The energy shield flickered, struggled, cracked. The metal behind it began to melt, bend, break. Kale shielded his eyes from the light. The heat filled the entire hall. The gate could not hold. With one final explosion, the gate shattered. A massive blast echoed through the prison. The walls trembled. The systems failed. Silence followed. Where the gate once stood, there was now open space. Dark, endless, free. Kale looked forward, then back at the dragon. A small smile appeared on his face. Behind him, the guards stood frozen, shocked, afraid. They finally understood. This was not just an escape. This was a mistake. The biggest mistake the Empire had ever made. The black void was no longer silent. It burned. Flames spread through broken halls. Smoke filled the air. Metal walls collapsed one by one. Systems failed. Lights flickered, then died. The prison that had never been broken was falling apart. Inside, chaos had no control anymore. Cells were open. Creatures ran free. Some fought. Some escaped. Some simply stood in shock, staring at what had just happened. A human and a dragon had done the impossible. Kale stood at the broken gate, breathing hard. Behind him, the prison roared with destruction. In front of him, open space. Freedom. The dragon stood beside him. No chains, no pain, no control, just power and choice. For a moment, neither of them moved. They had fought. They had survived. Now, they were free. Come on, Kale said quietly. The dragon looked at him, then forward. Then it stepped out. They moved into the dark space beyond the gate. Emergency ships had been left outside the prison for guards. Kale found one. Small, fast, still working. He turned back for a second. The black void burned behind him. A place that was meant to hold monsters forever was now gone, destroyed from the inside. Kale entered the ship. The dragon followed. It barely fit inside, but it didn't care. It stayed close. The engine started. A low hum filled the air. Then, the ship shot forward into space. Behind them, the black void exploded. A massive blast of fire and metal spread into the darkness. Gone. Just like that. Far away, across the galaxy, signals began to spread. Reports, messages, warnings. The black void has fallen. Repeat, the black void has been destroyed. No survivors confirmed among guards. Unknown attackers. Then the truth came out, slowly, piece by piece. A human was seen, with a dragon. At first, no one believed it. It sounded impossible. A lie, a mistake. But more reports followed. More witnesses. More proof. A human earned the trust of a dragon. Silence spread across the Empire. Deep, heavy, uncomfortable. This had never happened before. Not once. Not in all their history. Dragons were not allies. They were weapons. Beasts. Things to control or destroy. But this one chose. The Empire leaders gathered. High commanders. Cold minds. Powerful beings. They listened to the reports. Watched the recordings. Saw the truth. A human standing beside a dragon. Fighting together. Escaping together. One commander spoke, his voice low. This changes everything. Fear began to grow. Not loud, not open, but real. Because if one human could do this, what else could they do? And if dragons could choose humans, then control was no longer certain. Far from the Empire, on a quiet, distant world, a ship landed. The surface was calm. Wide lands, open skies, no cities, no noise. Peace. The door opened. Kale stepped out first. He took a deep breath. Fresh air. Real air. Not metal. Not smoke. Freedom. Behind him, the dragon stepped out. It spread its wings slowly, feeling the wind, the open sky. No chains pulling it down. It looked around, then up. Then it let out a powerful roar. The sound echoed across the land. Strong. Free. Alive. Kale smiled. You earned that, he said. The dragon looked at him. Its eyes were calm now. No rage. No pain. It stepped closer, not as a prisoner, not as a beast, as something else. An ally. Kale placed his hand on its head again, just like before. But now, there was no fear at all. You don't have to stay, Kale said softly. You're free. The dragon looked at him, long, silent. Then it lowered its head slightly, not leaving. It had made its choice. Kale nodded. All right, he said. Then we do this together. Days passed, then weeks. The story continued to spread, across planets, across systems, across the entire galaxy. A human and a dragon, free, together. They became more than a story. They became a symbol of something new, something dangerous, something the Empire could not control. Finally, Kale decided it was time. He activated a signal, strong, wide, broadcast across every known system. The Empire received it. Every leader, every soldier, every world. The message appeared. Simple, clear. Kale stood on the screen. The dragon beside him, wings slightly open, eyes glowing. He looked straight ahead, calm, focused. Then he spoke. You saw a weak human. He paused. And a dying beast. The dragon let out a low growl. You were wrong. Silence filled the signal. Kale took one step forward. Now, his voice hardened. You will remember us. The signal ended. Across the Empire, no one spoke, because now they understood the truth. This was not just an escape. This was a warning. And far away, under an open sky, the human and the dragon stood side by side, free and ready for what comes next. Somewhere in the Empire, a commander whispers, "Find them before they start a war." The dragon lifts its wings. Kale smiles. Too late.